I think it is the beginning of that episode where I think it starts out where he's spray painting the White Skull on the flak jacket,
After
and
he had, after at the beginning of the series, he had burned.
yeah,
Uh,
he had the one that he had from Schoonover or whatever his name
yeah,
was.
from Mr. Krabs. Hey, Frank
Clancy.
Frank Castle, you're gonna give me a Krabby Patty.
No, it's like I had the feeling as soon as I saw him putting the skull, like painting the skull on, I was like, oh, this episode's gonna be kick ass. I can tell already.
Everything about it, what I loved was the teasers that they were doing for Punisher. Like the one in the woods where he takes out the squad in the woods was an episode. Every teaser they showed before the series came out was in the show. Everything, and the
Yeah,
fact that it
yeah,
all,
sorry, and it was like part of it all. Like it was like the little snippets you heard were like clues as to stuff that was gonna happen,
yeah.
and they kind of stood out in the show.
A couple things I kind of had to take with a grain of salt, and I kind of had to think to myself, like when they show the flashbacks of Kandahar, Frank and Billy are they're wearing army uniforms, but I'm guessing because they were part of this elite team, everybody wore the same uniform and they went with one uniform. Because I was kind of like, well, why aren't they? They're Marines. Why are they wearing army style fatigues? But then I was like, well, they're part of this covert operation team, so they're all going to wear the same uniform. It's not going to be a different uniform. So I kind of
It
got
must
that.
be something thought out because when he's wearing his Marine dress uniform, it's like all
It's
as
accurate.
far as I can tell,
It's
it's all
accurate.
accurate. Yeah.
Yeah, it's accurate.
So it must be something to do with that. I'm sure they wouldn't just blatantly get it wrong.
No, no, no. And I love that he talks about the Marine Corps a lot. I love that. There were several things that in the show that I was like, wait a minute, they're already doing this now. Like, C. Thomas Howell at the beginning, who played Wolf, the guy who the head guy at the Homeland Security that Madani takes over for after Frank brutally murders him.
Yeah.
I thought that was going to be like the big bad of the whole season. Like he was going to be the foil for the whole season, and then
Tony
Frank
Boy bought it quick.
and he bought it quick, and it's like, holy shit, the fuck. Oh, and oh yeah, by the way, people, spoiler alert. But
If you haven't watched it, stop now because we're about to really ruin it.
oh
So
yeah,
get out of here now if you haven't watched all the Punisher
oh
yet.
yeah, all those other podcasts, the spoiler-free podcasts, you're not going to find it here. We're talking about it.
No, yeah, we already watched it all, so you're
Oh,
late to the game.
oh yeah,
Ben's got 2 kids and he watched it all. What's your problem?
oh yeah. I had to watch it at night after they go to bed. First you have him, and then you have Agent Orange, and then then of course then Billy Russo, and yes, I was waiting the entire series for Frank to either take a knife to his face or something to his face, because I'm like, at some point they have to give him at least a semblance of Jigsaw, which is who he is.
Yeah,
in
well,
the comics.
they changed the character a little bit to be one of his Marine buddies, but
Yeah,
in the comics he was like a Maggie, a crime boss or something, like known for his looks, and Frank fucked him up,
yeah.
and that's why he hates Frank. But yeah, it finally does happen, and in the most brutal way imaginable.
But oh, when he did it, I was just like, oh yes, yes. And here's what the other thing I loved about this: there was no Shield involvement at all in this whole episode. There was no hand, there was none of the stuff from previous series. This was Frank in New York taking out who he had to take out. No superheroes showing up saying, Frank, you can't do this.
No, and that's what I liked about it because that in the comic books, the superheroes, and I don't know if it's from Cap comes down. I think it has come down. If I remember correctly, in I think it was the Warzone comic book where he fought the Avengers, and they finally went to go bring Frank Castle, and they sent the Avengers, and he beat all the Avengers. So I guess it infers in the past, before whatever he was wanted for at that time, it infers in the past that either Captain America and Wolverine have kind of protected Frank Castle from being on the radar for a while because
Yeah.
the Captain America respects what Frank Castle does, I think. But he goes over the line in that miniseries, and they send the Avengers after him, and he defeats all the Avengers one by one. And Thor ends up having a beer with him because he defeats Thor. And then at the end of it, he like bests Thor, so Thor breaks out a six pack and they drink, and Thor leaves him alone. But it's kind of cool that they're not involved because Frank Castle kind of is off of Shield's radar. He is off of the radar of the big time heroes, and even Tony Stark says in the movies that they're there for cosmic invaders and gods and shit like that.
Yeah,
They're not for this small time arms dealer shit. That's for
that's for
Homeland
Frank.
Security and everything else.
That's for Frank.
Yeah, and Frank. And like Shield's not going to get involved in Frank, and plus they're scared shitless of Frank Castle. and even in there's a part of I can't remember what issue it is, but it's in the early part of Superior Foes of Spider-Man in the comic book. The Superior Foes are all in their like little hangout kind of club where they're all discussing their plans, and they look out the window and they see Frank Castle standing outside. It turns out it's the Chameleon, like in Frank Castle disguise, just to run people off. But they think it's Frank Castle, and super powered villains run from Frank Castle. They don't want any part of him, and they know he's just a bad motherfucker that will not. You have to kill him, and even that might not even stop him in a Marvel book.
And really, this whole series is kind of like a Frank redemption story. It's Frank finding in a way, finding himself again. Because up until now, up until this series, the end of the series, Frank has had one mission and one mission alone, and that's to kill everyone that was involved with the death of his family. He didn't care who got in his way. You get in my way, you're dead. I want these people. And along the way, with Micro coming in, he starts realizing that because at that point Frank had nobody he cared about. He didn't care about jack shit except for Karen Page going into this series because he formed a respect for Karen Page in season 2 of Daredevil. But then you bring in Micro and Micro's family, damn Micro, good on you. You got yourself a good looking wife there, Micro. Damn. And he starts caring for people, and I loved Micro in this series. The actor who plays Micro,
the two of them together were good.
Oh.
I love that Frank finally had a partner to team up with, and I thought it was great. Like how it reminded me of the comics. I would say that give it. I mean, it's different, and they've retro whatever.
Gave Micro a little bit more character development, a little bit more.
Yeah.
I loved how they introduced Micro, that it was Micro. He is a hacker. He finds Frank. He calls the diner phone, the payphone in the diner, to talk to Frank.
And they had the van, they had the lair. It was very Punisher style to me, and even though I mean it's hard to separate sometimes for me the Netflix and the Marvel Cinematic Universe from the comic book origins and stuff, and it gets kind of muddled and confused. But with this, I mean, it was pretty damn close. I mean, they're pretty damn close with Frank.
I mean, well, think about it. The only things they really changed is Frank this time was in Iraq and Afghanistan, not Vietnam.
Yeah, I mean, it's been updated. Yeah, he's a Vietnam vet in the Marvel comics. But
this time he's an Iraq Afghanistan vet. Jigsaw was his buddy instead of Amagia. They gave a little more backstory to Micro with the family and everything. And now it's going to be interesting if they ever do where Micro actually becomes a villain to Frank, like he did in the comic books. But that's after he was resurrected.
You see, I thought they might kill him when they pulled the little switch up where they exchanged the hostages. I thought they might have killed him then, and I thought he might have been dead. Like, I wasn't expecting him to like all be a plot at that point, because I knew at some point he's going to die. And I didn't know if they were just going to jump the gun here and do it right now, since they were ending. Netflix is supposedly not making any more Marvel series after this, so. Well, I didn't know if they thought maybe they just jump the gun and kill him or what.
Well, I'm pretty sure with the like we talked about the Disney streaming service, Disney is going to produce more series.
I hope so, because I would really like to see this be a setup for bringing in Jigsaw. Maybe do that Punisher in prison arc, or that miniseries in the 80s. that came out. That it was like 4 issues, I think, but it was really important to Frank's.
Yeah.
He went to prison in that, and that's when the warden like gave him his fucking skull suit back and his guns and told him and just let him out because he was just such a fucking badass. They'd rather have him out.
Than in. Well, they teased at the end Jigsaw when they showed Billy's face all bandaged. So they teased that, he can be a major player later on down the road. I mean, Frank, they got to do something with Frank because he is this series arguably, in my opinion, other than the second season of Daredevil when Frank came in,
Yeah.
one of the best Netflix series they had. And in my opinion, it was better than Defenders. It was so much better than Defenders.
Well, I think so too, but I don't know if that's just I don't know if it was just a better show or just my bias for loving this character that much, because I waited hard for this one,
yeah.
man.
Well, I think for me, it's because the entire Marvel universe we've had nothing but powered costumed superheroes. That's all we've had is people in costumes, people with superpowers. They finally give us somebody who's just a man with nothing but his skills.
Really, Daredevil's the weakest one until, as far as the superpowers go.
Until Frank shows up. And even
I
then,
guess Captain America's kind of a regular guy too. He's just
he's got
peak physical condition.
Well, he's got the super soldier serum, so he's got the super strength and all that, and resiliency and things like that. But Daredevil, I like Daredevil, but I'm realizing as I'm watching these series just how much I love Karen Page. And how much that character is growing on me throughout the different series. Because I don't know what it is. I'm just liking her every single time I see her in another series because she's not afraid to get her hands dirty. She's not afraid to be in the tough situations. When she was taken captive by Lewis and she's communicating silently with Frank, which wire do I need to pull to make sure this bomb doesn't go off, and then she has the gun in her purse and shoots through her purse to shoot Lewis in the foot.
Yeah.
Karen Page is I'm just liking her more and more every time I see her.
I'm the only thing that I don't like. I'm hoping like you said. I hope this keeps going on Disney somehow, because they've built kind of a world here now where these characters jump from each show into each other's series, and that's one of the only things that I wish they would do is connect it more to the cinematic.
Yeah, I mean, even something,
and let them guess. Let some of the big heroes come in once in a while, like Spider-Man come in just for a minute.
And Spider-Man would be like the best choice because he is a hometown. Spider-Man technically is a street hero.
Yeah. Well, how great would it be if the Daredevil opened up like with the sun going down and Daredevil on the edge of a building talking to somebody and look over and it's Spider-Man against the wall like they do in the books.
Yeah, exactly. Or something even like little like when Frank was running from the cops, right? In this series when he's running through the cops, if he ran past like the Sanctum Sanctorum, he doesn't have to do anything with it. Doesn't have to do anything with it. It's just right there, and you're like, that's the Sanctum Sanctorum. I mean, we know Doctor Strange is in New York.
Well, yeah. Well, it's kind of weird because they've never done anything like this. I mean, this is almost like because before in comics they didn't have like cohesive universes like back in the Golden Age necessarily. Then they'd have some characters guest in other books and stuff, but it wasn't like the way the DC and Marvel universes are now. They're just these huge, vast things that are they've almost become real life because they're so vast. There's so many characters, and it's like they're doing that with movies. They're building a connected universe. I don't know how many movies there are now. There's so many, and they're all connected. There's so many, and they're all different characters and different. They're all connected together, and that's connected to the Netflix and the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And it's this huge they're creating like almost like the comic book universe in visual form on television, and movies. and it's never been done before. So it's like you have to get actors to sign on for like ever
All
to
right.
be part of this.
All right.